Record Panel is an application that allows you to centralize all of your recording parameters into a single view. So download the application, install it on your TriCaster, and then we need to know what the IP address of our TriCaster is so we can pull up the web interface from another computer. You can get the IP of your TriCaster by clicking on the notification center found in the upper right corner of your interface. And at the bottom of this window, it will list the IP address of your TriCaster system. So now let's go into a web browser and type in the IP address of our TriCaster system. And you're going to then add /record panel to the end of the URL. At this point, you'll see the Record Panel application open. It might ask for your live panel username and password. So if it asks, just enter that information as well. When you first open this app, it's going to start out in the default configuration for any session. And I need to take one moment and explain what Record Panel can and can't see from the TriCaster. Currently, the API in the TriCaster does not share any of the recording configurations. So things like if a channel is set to record or has its replay option set, file name, or paths, I can't get to that information. The TriCaster doesn't share that out. So if you already have a session where you've configured paths and file names and these options, Record Panel will not be able to see that initial configuration. It's going to just start with its own configuration. Now it does save the configuration it's working with. So once you start using it and you open up a session again, it will see the previous configuration that it has saved and go with that. But just remember that if you go directly in the TriCaster and program anything yourself, this application currently can't follow along. If the API in the TriCaster is extended to share out that information, I will then update Record Panel to use it. But I just want you to be aware of that difference so that you understand why a setting that might already be in the TriCaster isn't showing up as checked in Record Panel when you first open it, because I can't tell if that setting has been checked or not. Okay, now that we're in the application, at the top we've got our record button and we have the global drive letter and paths. We'll come back to that in a moment. And then we have a list of all of the outputs and inputs along with their settings that Record Panel is configuring the system with. To start with, we've got our channels. And if you put your pointer over the channel names, it will actually display a little thumbnail icon of what the current video source looks like coming into that input. Now, it's not live video that's updating, but it does grab a live channel when you drag over it. So that way, at least you get a single frame instant update of what any channel of video is currently looking at. Next to that, we have our record and replay options, and you can just check these on or off with the checkboxes. The file name that you would like to save your files with. You can use data link fields in here. So you could type, %, a data link code, %. It's not going to create a drop-down list like you see in the TriCaster, but if you type in those same data link fields, they will work through Record Panel into the TriCaster. And then finally, we have the record path and this global option. And I want to explain how this works. If something is checked with global, which by default everything is, then it's going to use the settings at the top of the window to assign to all of your recordings. If you want to set up a manual recording option, you can uncheck this, and then this field opens up. And at this point, you're free to enter any record path and drive letter that you would like to use. Now you'll notice that in the global mode, when anything is not checked for recording, the path is going to have a question mark at the beginning because at this point it hasn't been assigned, so no drive letter has been allocated yet for that recording. One of the things you're able to do in Record Panel is create a pool of drive letters, and the system will automatically spread recordings across them. So if I was, for example, to put Z in here, every single recording would go to my Z drive. So maybe if I had shared storage, that could be the way I want to work. But let's say I had a Z drive, a D drive, and an E drive, and I wanted to spread out my recordings across all of those drives. I could type all of those different drive letters in here. And now as I start assigning my records, you can see that they will automatically be assigned in order as to how I've laid out my drive letters to these different paths. And it will take into account only the things that you're setting record on to be used for drive letters. And if I wanted to, maybe I want to assign more recordings to the Z drive because that's my shared storage. So I'd like more, maybe for every recording that goes to a local drive, I want to send more recordings to the shared storage. I could type in a drive letter twice if I wanted to. And now you can see it goes Z, D, Z, E, Z. So I'm getting more going to the Z drive than going to the other drive letters. If you hold down the Shift key and you click on the record, replay, or global titles at the top of these columns, this will automatically reverse everything that is in that column. So if you wanted to, for example, set everything that's currently global to be a manual setup here, you could shift click on global, and now you can see everything is set up for manual folder name in here. And I could go in here and let's say this one's going to go to my Z drive. I want you to notice too, it also remembers what you last set up in here. Same thing, I can do the same for replay and for recording. The system doesn't know how many channels of recording your TriCaster is actually capable of based on either what your actual storage configuration is or based on what the maximum number of channels of your TriCaster can do. So this will try to set up everything that you possibly punch into it, but you have to make sure that you select options that are actually feasible on the TriCaster system you're using. Once you're ready to record, you can click the record button at the top of the screen. I'm just going to only record a couple things in here really quick, just so you can see it happen. And once you hit record, the button will turn orange for a second. And once it turns red, it will highlight any channels that are recording. At this point, you cannot click on any of the fields in the panel because it's recording and you can't change these things. And then you can press record again to stop recording. Now, you can also use the record button directly in the TriCaster. You don't have to use the record button inside the record panel. The record button in here will follow the status of recording. So really, it's just a matter of programming your recording settings in here. The record button here or the record button in the TriCaster, either one of those is a valid use to start and stop recording.